Oh no, sorry.
Oh.
Yehuda's here, one sec.
Are we allowed to move these out of the way?
Yeah.
Do we get shouted at?
This one as well, yeah.
What time is the earliest meeting tomorrow? Okay?
8.
What time is pizza delivery?
Oh, I forgot to order pizza. Guys, you're missing out.
Hold on. Where are we ordering pizza from?
What's the best open?
8. Sunday.
8 o'clock and 9 o'clock.
La 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 la.
We can sing instead of eating. It's just as good.
For you, maybe.
No wonder we never get.
I'll tell you that next time Chris Taylor, you never say you can't drink. It's the same thing.
I didn't say drinking, I said eating.
The same thing.
Good luck, good Chodesh, everybody. Good luck, David. Good luck, Yehuda.
Right, get some beautiful
I had, what's the word for it? My brother had a knife for this week. Listen, Friday night was in couples. Massive turnout. Massive turnout. About 60 people. What?
Wow.
The meal or
Meal.
Why did you have it?
With children, everything.
No, I didn't try to with children, everything. Then in the morning there was the throwing of the streets was managed to Shiva.
Right.
And we had David Halpern, Dominic Halpern. So at least Hashbrosh a long pasture, but he really got cracking. And then Shabbos morning was my parents, but only for out of town. I had quite a lot of guests in my house over Shabbos.
What was the Kiddush?
No Kiddush, tiny Kiddush.
Yeah, you want that YouTube? You better be careful.
It's been.
Around the world.
Been.
But they're coming around.
And Shabbos this was just for adults.
Wow.
But very busy. It was very busy actually. My children didn't get to bed till that. Oh, Chastas Wednesday. I'm going ready on Tuesday. What? Yeah, in London.
Somewhere south of
So Tuesday I can take. No, Tuesday I can. The problem is if I take it Tuesday, who will do it Wednesday? You won't have anybody for Wednesday. You need another laptop for Wednesday. Tuesday I'm going to London on Tuesday afternoon.
Cover more the next 2 days and then take 1 day off.
Or do you prefer we should have had a substitute? What's better?
So what was that?
Or do you prefer a substitute? That means we'd have to do like an hour a day. What? I can't hear. Yeah, for Tuesday it works, not for Wednesday. Wednesday I'll be away.
I'll be at a wedding.
You could also pre-record it.
Oh, maybe do the pre-recording class.
On Wednesday just do a pre-recording.
You could even come here.
Yeah, we'll put it on. I'll bring the TV again. I'll bring the TV.
We'll think about it. We'll decide. Okay, got a few days to think about it. Okay, let's get going. It's already
late.
It's getting late. Oh, they'll rush. They'll just rush it.
You'll never know
We're going back to the halachas of bittul. Back actually. Yeah, we've never left it right.
Retroactive, whatever.
That's good. Bittul. Very briefly. If we all live in the chutzah together, we'll live in the courtyard together. So we have two options. Option number one is to make an Eruv. That's the ideal option. In fact, we've learned it's a mitzvah to make an Eruv. Option number two is if somebody forgot to make an Eruv or doesn't want to make an Eruv, you can do bittul. We're going to discuss bittul in more detail later. This is the idea. If one of us is a goy, he can't do Eruv and he can't do bittul. The only thing he can do is schirus, rent. Because we want that it should be awkward, and once it's awkward, then eventually it will not work, and eventually people move out. The big discussion we're having today is what about a tzduki? That's a yid. That means he's born a yid. Unfortunately, he doesn't keep Tersh Shval Peh. He's somebody who would call him. The more discusses different kinds of tzdukim, but somebody who doesn't keep the mitzvahs properly. If we hold like he's a yid, then he can do bittul. If you hold like he's a goy, you can't do bittul. So that was a machlikus, in fact, that we had at the end of Friday. Well, this tzduki, for example, doesn't necessarily be somebody. He can have das. There's not reasons. That's right. Yes, das is ultimate. And you need to ask permission for bittul. You can't just do bittul without permission. You have to ask them, are you willing to be mavata? So the question is, can we rely on a tzduki to do bittul? So we're up to Samaches Amud Beis, 1.5 lines from the bottom. Omama. Look, we're quoting the Bryce we mentioned before. Gamliel told his children, that means, he said, that take whatever you need, bring in whatever you need, And the Gemara understood that by doing that, there will be koina the shvisa. What's being koina the shvisa? Koina the bittul, I'm sorry, koina the bittul. Let's say, for example, Ben says, this Shabbos, I forgot to make the Eruv, and be mevatel my reshus to everybody else in the Chatzah. Can he change his mind?
Shabbos you can do it.
On Shabbos, he can do bittul. On Shabbos morning, he does bittul. Half an hour later, he suddenly remembers that he wants to sit in the garden and take out his toys with him. Can he change his mind? So at this stage, the Gemara understood that if we already utilized the bittul, that means if we've taken our stuff and we've gone into the Chatzah, so therefore, what is bittul? Bittul is saying that he's relinquishing his part of the Chatzah. So if we grab that part back hefka, he can't change his mind anymore. If we haven't yet done anything about it, he can change his mind. So at this stage, we understood that the Tzduki did bittul. And Gamliel said to them that quickly go in the Chatzah and take your stuff there. And once you take your stuff to the Chatzah, he will not be able to do anything about it. He can't back out.
No, and you take the stuff back out.
Can we take the stuff out? Yes, certainly. But the question is, can we make sure that the Tzduki doesn't change his mind? It says the Gemara. Remember, does this mean the chimafki inhu? That if they take the stuff out first, and then the Tzduki takes the stuff out, say he can't forbid it anymore. Why can't he forbid it anymore? Because it's too late. Because we've already grabbed hold of the Chatzah which he has relinquished. What's not? Go on, Mishnah, the next Mishnah. Mishnah and Rishus, so a person gave Rishus, let's say Ben gave his permission. But then he goes and takes out, after he gave permission, Bein b'shogeg, Bein b'mezid oisa. So now, he has now forbidden, by taking his stuff out, he is showing that I'm not relinquishing anymore my Chatzah. I want it back. And this, by the way, this quotation we had before was Rameh. So we see that Rameh holds that even if a person does bittul, he can undo the bittul. Can a person undo his bittul? And what says yes, you can. So therefore, how can you say before the Gamliel told them, Gamliel said the name of Gamliel, quickly take your stuff out, and then that way he won't be able to undo his bittul? Rabbi says clearly you can undo your bittul. Answers the Gemara, Omar Yosef Ema Einois. So we have to be Magia, we have to, what's a good word for English Magia? Come on, what's a good word for to change the text? What? Amend. I would say amend the Mishnah. Amend the Mishnah, not that. So it comes out according to that. If a person takes his stuff out, if a person does bittul, he can't change his mind again. You relinquish your rishus and the Chatzah, that's it. Says the Gemara, Abai Omar lo kasha. No, much better answer. You don't need to amend the Mishnah. It depends. If you do bittul and nobody went into the mavu yet, so you can change your mind. It's like I relinquish my possession of the Chatzah and then I change my mind. But if they've already moved into the Chatzah with their stuff, so they have shown that we've taken over the bit that you've relinquished, then you can't change your mind. So the Vaisa that says that quickly take out your stuff, is still, well, we've taken out your stuff, so you can't change his mind. The Mishnah which says that the Asas is talking about when nobody's yet utilized the permission that he has given. Oh, the Asas.
Obviously, if it tells him to take it out quickly, it means that he hadn't have done that, then any action on the other.
The Ritva asks a question. It's a very, very good question. Why is this answer not obvious? Why did Rabbi Yosef not think of this answer? And he says like this. The Ritva answers that if you read carefully in the Mishnah, it says Misha nosan l'shusay, and not Misha bitter l'shusay. And he understands, therefore, that nosan l'shusay is more than bitter. It is bitter plus the people took the stuff out, and they've already taken over the Chatzah. And therefore, it's a doichet to say that nosan l'shus is where the people, again, where the still Mishnah advice. So you answered correctly. The Bryce is clearly talking about where they already took the stuff out. And the Mishnah is why they didn't take the stuff out. That's why Bias tells us it's an obvious answer. No, it's not such an obvious answer. Because Nasan Rishus is more than Bittul Rishus, and therefore maybe it's talking about in the case where they've already taken out the stuff and it's still not. It's a very good Shah. It's very good. The answer is obvious. I tell you why, it's partly obvious because we already discussed the question before, so therefore already said that there's a chiluk. But this is when our bias being mechadish this chiluk. Now again, a bias coming up with a very chishru paskin like this, that when you do Bittul Rishus, if I then move, let's say for example, is Babatas Rishus, and I go into the Chatzah, and I move my deck chair there, now he can't take his thing back. It's too late. It's been a bit of a Rishus. He's lost his ability. And indeed, Votanya, Sometimes Vortanya is a question, Vortanya is a question, and sometimes Vortanya is to back it up. This is to back it up. This is a slightly different case, and it's a very interesting case. We're talking now about a Yid who's Mechalel Shabbos. And what happened was, he didn't do Bittul Rishus. That means we wake up Shabbos morning and we realize that Eiruvin did not join in our Eruv. And before we have a chance, what do we want to do? We want to knock on Euruvin's door and say to him, do you mind? We all did an Eruv, you didn't join in. Do you mind do Bittul Rishus? And before he had a chance to do that, we see this Eiruvin, what's he doing? He Mechalel Shabbos. So Botan imagine not in the Shus Hoitzi Ben B'Shig Ben Mezid Yochel the battle to Rameya. Rameya says that you can. Why? Rameya holds that the fact that the person is Mechalel Shabbos does not stop him from doing Bittul Rishus. A goy can't do Bittul Rishus, and Mechalel Shabbos can do Bittul Rishus. But Mezid and Yochel Levater. It's a different argument. Machlokas, whether everybody agrees somebody Mechalel Shabbos b'shogeg can be Mevatel Rishus. Machlokas is somebody Mechalel Shabbos b'mezid can be Mevatel Rishus. And now we come up to the second part of the Brisa, which is the main part of the Brisa, which backs up this chiddush which Abaya said, which Yeshua said was obvious, that there's a difference between whether you've taken your stuff out or not. This is the second half. Mishnosan Rishusoi. That's B'shogeg makes it doesn't answer. But Med Moim says the Brisa, when is these halachas? The last halacha true when they haven't yet taken over. That means the Brisa clearly tells us that when can a person retract? Only as long as the people haven't yet moved into the Movi. Once they moved into the Movi, nobody can retract. So there's two machlekes between Rameya and Rabbi Yehuda. One, some do a Mechalel Shabbos b'mezid. Can he do a Bittul Rishus? That's one machlekes. Another machlekes is somebody who's done a Bittul Rishus, and there he decides to undo it. Can he undo it? And there, according to Rameya, regardless of whether he does b'mezid or b'shogeg and does it. According to Rabbi Yehuda, only b'mezid is called undoing and not b'shogeg. So that's the two machlekes Rameya and Rabbi Yehuda. Omama. Rabbi Yehuda argued. Rabbi Yehuda said not that he allowed him to do bittul. Rabbi Yehuda holds that Mechalel Shabbos cannot do bittul. It's Stuki is a Mechalel Shabbos. Yes, he is. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't keep Shabbos properly. So Rabbi Yehuda said that. What did he say? What did Gamliel say? Since a Stuki is Mechalel Shabbos and there was a Stuki living in the neighborhood, what did he say to them? Not like a mayor that quickly go into the chutz and the mobui that he can't change his mind, but rather, what did he say to them? What would you say if you hold like he's at Stuki, can't do bittul? What should he say to them? We talked about it on Friday. It was very quick. What did Gamliel say to his children?
Before Shabbos.
Very good. Quickly get on with the job, and whatever you need to move into the Movi, move before Shabbos, because it's too late once Shabbos comes in. Why? He's at Stuki, and he can't do bittul rishus, and he's not a guy we don't do schirus for him. So if you got at Stuki, you're going to be stuck. So therefore, you've got to do everything before Shabbos.
Does that then work for Shabbos?
No. It's just whatever you want in the Movi. Let's example, you want to sit in the Movi to Sunday. So take the deck chair to the So take your deck chair outside because you're not going to be able to do it on Shabbos. Alma Nochri, he was like a guy that you can't do bittul rishus. Our Mishnah says before the tzduki takes out his stuff, mashma. The way we understand in our Mishnah is like this. The posh pshat in our Mishnah is that the tzduki does a bittul rishus, and then later when he takes his stuff out, he undoes the bittul rishus. So therefore, Gamliel said, quickly do whatever you need to do before he comes out and he undoes his bittul. Mashma from our Mishnah that a tzduki can do bittul. Only when Gamliel is being choishesh that he'll undo, he'll retract his bittul. Not that he can't do it to begin with. So it's a steer from our Mishnah to the Brisa as to what is Rabbi Yehuda's shitta b'shittas Gamliel. Did he say quickly do before Shabbos because once Shabbos comes in you can't do anything, or did he say do whatever you need to do before the tzduki retracts his bittul? Says the Gemara, it depends. It doesn't mean actually yotzi before the tzduki takes his stuff out and retracts the bittul. Actually, it means until the day doesn't go out. What do you mean until the day doesn't go out? Till Friday it doesn't go out. Meaning you're only allowed to work till Shabbos. If you've got tzduki in your neighborhood, you can't do bittul. You're going to have to do everything you can do actually say before the day goes out. Be very safe. Yeah, it's somebody that knows Al Shabbos.
But that reform's not.
The reform is not because the thing should
And that
nishbah.
Torah should
But the Maisa, we pass can you do schius. We pass can you can do schius.
Olden days.
Even with the Siddur.
Even it's stupid, but the Maisa, you have to do schius. If you've got, let's say you want to do, let's say you live in this cul-de-sac, let's say you live in a small cul-de-sac, it's Cassfield Avenue, I don't know, unless there's a yid there who's not a Shem Shabbos, you have to rent from him. You can't include him in the Eruv, you have to rent from him. He's like a good. What?
If he's awkward, like this regular
Yeah.
self-hating Jew, is always get around it.
It's not so easy because you can't do an Eruv. You can't say he's got no. Let's say a small cul-de-sac. He's got a right to the cul-de-sac. So you can't say he's got no right to cul-de-sac. The only way to bypass it is to rely on what the managed basin do is to rent from the council or from the police, and then that way,
Oh, so
that's what they do. That's what they do because of these unfortunately
Because
leads.
when I
Who
did
don't
it-
rely on Eruv,
Yeah.
let's say Devon Shapur.
Yeah.
There was someone there who was just.
That's right. Then they'd have a major problem. Major
But
problem.
I
Yes.
had in my when I did it when I paid the management people or
What?
people in my building
Yes.
that weren't showing a shower.
I know you
I
did.
didn't have they were even I didn't and there are other people.
Yeah, but the management have got permission probably to let people
Right,
in
so
and
I
out.
don't have that, so
That's
I
right, it's got a
completely
problem.
disregard the-
Yeah, that's
the-
right.
So the main Eruv in town, they rely on bittul and skiros, or
They rely on schius. They rely on schius.
They go up to the authority.
They rent from a number of different authorities, from the police, from the fire engine, from the council. So
override any individual owner.
that's right. They can override every individual because their law is they're allowed to break into anybody's house. So therefore, as I said, this is a proper halacha. It's not something. It's not a doichik. That's not b'diavad because at the end of the day we see that they did so. So the Gemara says, "People receive another answer. The kash kabamum lechal Shabbos is betzina kabamum lechal Shabbos b'fehesya. When is bechal Shabbos b'fehesya? So therefore, you can't do bittul at all. But when there's any betzina, you can do bittul. No,
it doesn't do it.
it's odd. We'll see the Gemara in a minute.
No, that he does it with Tzimmer.
Says, well, Kaman Ozla, the Tanya, Mumma, the Gilu Ponim, has the Enim of Atarishus. Who does this Brisa go like? Which says, a Mumma is somebody who decides to rebel. And Gilu Ponim in the Havin of Mon understood is a chutzpanyak, somebody who's brazen. So, Fade the Gemara, first one interrupts it. Gilu Ponim, Mumma Hava, somebody who's just very brazen. Is there a Mumma? What way is there a Mumma? And a Mumma be Gilu Ponim. Somebody who's a mumma, and not just is he a mumma that he rebels, but he also does it in a brazen manner. And Yochel of Atalishus, come back to the Shus. Kaman, who's it like? Rabbi Yehuda. It's like Rabbi Yehuda that says that if he's a mumma lechal Shabbos with a hesya, then you can't do bittul, you can only do schivus. And if he's only mumma Shabbos with sinner, lechal Shabbos with sinner, you can even do bittul. We actually pass like this as well. Again, as you say, which is not so easy to find something. But let's say you know something lechal Shabbos privately. But publicly he would hide the fact, then he could even do bittul, like he is. Yes. Moses says, Ahu, there was this yid, a nofak v'chumusa de medusha. He went out to the chumusa de medusha. Rashi has got two different explanations what is a chumusa de medusha. Either it's a knot filled with spices, which is not an ornament and not a clothes, and therefore was not allowed to carry it on Shabbos. Alternatively, Rashi says it's a signet ring, which the material of the ring and the signet part are made out of two different materials, which you're not allowed to go on Shabbos. If it's made, it's only if it's one, but it's not it's not an ornament. It's made for business. When he saw Yehuda Nasi, he hid it. He was embarrassed. He's allowed to rat to Why? Because even though he's been Mechal Shabbos, but the minute that he sees the law, what does he do? He hides it, and therefore is Mechal Shabbos. But the very, very beautiful story, the book called the Tzaddik in Our Times by Eiruvin. He had a tremendous ability to mekarev Yidden because he loved them so much. They felt his love, and there were soldiers who were working at Etzem, which was an organization to try and get the British out of.
Hotels, no?
That's right, burn up hotels. And he was very close to them. He was visiting them in prisons, and one of them was unfortunately a bach from Chevron, got caught up, sat Mechal Shabbos. And one day he was smoking, and who does he meet? His horror, Eiruvin. Eiruvin comes up to him to wish him good Shabbos. He was so embarrassed. No, so he bent it back in his hand against his hand. And they say, I don't know how, while he noticed it, I carried on talking to him that he shouldn't be able to, afterwards, be able to carry on smoking until the cigarettes went out. And while he was burning against his hand, this person had that self-control, the safe ability, that in order not to upset Rabbi Levine that he was smoking, he would rather.
He knew that he knew.
Okay,
They each knew each other.
but they knew that he was doing it l'chvoidoi. So there's such a person on Chal Shabbos v'Eser. At the end of the day, he's doing it b'tzina, he's private in the embarrassed, but that's not a mumma l'Chal Shabbos. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit about Hilchas Mumma. What is a mumma? Is a mumma? What is a mumma? Is a Mechal Shabbos b'Hesed. Mechal Shabbos public. We have a machlokes in Bechayros. You see this like a machlokes between a Meir and the Chachamim. When we know that somebody is over one Aveira, do we assume that he's over all Aveiros? So let's say you know somebody eats Chaza. Or you have to be choishish that he's nichshal in Basa B'Cholov, or he's nichshal as well in Chilul Shabbos.
Is that any love?
That's like, if you see him being over one lav publicly,
Do we assume
he's over all of them? Or do we say, no, it's a vine that he's over this one, it's not a vine that he's over all of them? If you're going like Rameh when you said this statement, why do you talk about something B'Chal Shabbos? Just say anybody who does any Aveira is a mumma. Why did you have to come up to a case of B'Chal Shabbos? If you go like the Rabbanon, they say that not that a person who's choshed on one Aveira is not choshed on the whole Torah. Add top of Samech Testament days. I'd have a mumma with Gechavim. Until he's a mumma of Avodah Zarah. That means only somebody who does Avodah Zarah, we say that is choshed the whole Torah. But somebody who, for example, goes to McDonald's, there's no reason to believe that he's over other Yisurim. So why did you say that somebody's B'Chal Shabbos? The Kasha. How could you say that somebody who's a mumma B'Chal Shabbos for Hesed is considered a Rosha completely? And you can't rely, for example, on the Shechita, you can't let him touch his wine, anything. You can't rely on him at all. How can you do such a thing? If it's
It's like a result.
very good. That's the Gemara's second answer. That Shabbos is like Avodah Zarah. That's the famous answer. Shabbos is like Avodah Zarah. But let's hear the question first. The question is that he said that somebody's a mumma for Shabbos is mumma for everything. How did they get it? According to Rameh, it's not that for Shabbos. Anything. According to Chametz, Avodah Zarah. So the first answer this Gemara gives like this. That means we're not talking about that he's not allowed to shecht, for example. We're talking about the Gabe Shabbos. If we see somebody as a Mechal Shabbos before Hesia, he's no longer allowed to join us in the halachas of the Eiruvin. What's his litin l'shus is to be part of an Eruv, and the vatel l'shus is to do bitul l'shus. He's not allowed to be part of an Eruv, and he's not allowed to do bitul l'shus either. Those two things are not allowed to. I want to tell a story very, very brief. It's nice, a story that somebody once came to visit the Chazon Ish Shabbos afternoon, and he walked from Tel Aviv to Bnei Brak. Tel Aviv used to be the deaf from a city, and he wanted to speak to him in learning. So Chazon Ish said to him, he walked out of the Tchum. So he said to him some flippant comment that he relied on the fact that there were houses on the way and it's only to Rabbanons, therefore he didn't worry about it because he had the shy he wants to be the Chazon Ish. So Chazon Ish said to him, you're a mumma for Shabbos. If you're a mumma for Shabbos, therefore all the wine which I have in my house, I have to be careful that you don't get anywhere near it because then I'll have to pour it all out. First God, you're shocked. Such a thing. So he said, I didn't realize. I was a chas v'shalom. So he said, okay, I accept your tshuva. He poured him a cup of wine and drank it with him. That's it. Because you have to be careful. A person's a mumma.
You didn't let him go back home.
No, we didn't. We didn't let him go back. No, there's still Kazash. He didn't let him go back on. That means in those days, Tel Aviv and Bnei Brak was not built up. Nowadays, it's all built up. But he didn't let him go. Nowadays you can. Okay. He couldn't leave the Chazon. He couldn't. You're right.
You have to sit there.
Yes, you're right. He couldn't leave the Chazon Ish's house. So what? Shogeg, when you go out to the Tchum, you're not allowed
Out of
to.
the house, out of the down.
Out of his house. Out of his house. He didn't let him go. He says in the story, Ma'aseh Chelik Aleph, he didn't let him go. Okay. So the Gemara says the first answer of the Gemara is that when somebody's a mumma l'chal Shabbos, he can't join the Eruv and he can't be mevatel his reshus. You saw mumma and the Shabbos Shabbos b'shuk, then mevatel reshus. If he keeps Shabbos publicly, he's allowed to mevatel reshus. If he doesn't keep Shabbos publicly, you saw noitel reshus, the nois reshus. A yid is allowed to get reshus, that is to join in the Eruv, the nois reshus and the mevatel reshus. With a go, you have to rent. We should discuss exactly what's this case referring to. That means Pashas was trying to say that if a person does a bit of a shus, you don't need to do a kinyan. If I say to you, let's not forget to join in the Eiruvin, I say, okay, I relinquish my rishus. Do I need to do a ma'aser kinyan? No. It's enough that you just say that I give up on my rishus. Again, so the Gemara says, Rav Nachman came along with a statement. Was it Rav Nachman? Sorry, Rav Huna. So Rav Huna came along with a statement and said that somebody who was a mumma, that you can't eat his shechita, you can't eat his wine, and you can't use him as an aid or anything. It's something Mechal Shabbos with Hesed. So he asked, I don't understand you. According to Rameh, anybody who does any of it, it's called the Chamim Yisrael. So he answered, Legabe Hilchas Shabbos. If a person's Mechal Shabbos with Hesed, he can't join the Erev Konvatlishus. And now the Gemara gives the second tale to explain what he said. It's a different Tanu who holds that B'Mechal Shabbos is as bad as Avodah Zarah. Kedetanya. Mikem. The pasuk says that a person can bring a korban. Adam ki yakif mikem, from you. Mikem is a miut. V'lo kolchem. Not everybody can bring a korban. Prat lemuma. A mumma cannot bring a korban. A mumma is not allowed to bring a korban. Let's say a person decides, let's say somebody who's a hachisnik, say, I want to bring a korban. No, you can't. Carries on.
You can't bring a chatos for the.
No, not until it does tshuva. That's it. You can't bring a chatos. Mikem, from you, klal yisrael. Bochem chilaktiv loy bomus. A goy is allowed to bring a korban, and not only is a goy allowed to bring a korban, but a goy who's a mumma. I mean, a goy who does avodah zarah publicly is allowed to bring a korban. A yid not. So mikem, from you, bochem chilaktiv loy bomus. Mina behema. Lahavi b'nei adam hadomin lebehema. You're allowed to bring from a korban from a person who behaves like an animal. We can we do accept korbanos from a rasha in order that way to encourage him to do tshuva. This is the end of the price, except for somebody who's a mumma, or somebody who pulls wife over the zor, or somebody who's mechal shabbos. So the price really, if you think about it, has 3 steps. It says step number 1, mikem, from you, that you can be a korban, but only part of you, not a mumma. Then it carries on and says, but a rasha can bring a korban. That's why it says, but that behema is a rasha who behaves like an animal, is allowed to bring a korban. And then it finishes off, not a mumma. What the Gemara now does is tries to fit in all 3, then eventually comes to the conclusion which you said, which is that Shabbos is like a result. We'll explain each step by step. Pogu for kasha. Gemara says this brisa is difficult, and it's almost, you said, it says a mumma. To exclude a mumma, you can't bring a korban. All the time you can't bring a korban, and then you finish off and say yes. You start off saying not from a rasha, and then you carry on yes from a rasha, in order to encourage them to do tshuva. The beginning of the price is talk about somebody who doesn't keep any of the mitzvahs. It's a complete rasha. From him, we don't accept the korban. When it says we do accept the korban, if somebody does that, let's say we see somebody who does a lot of znus. We know about him. He's not able to control himself. He's going out every night, going off to do znus. And then he says he wants to be a korban. So we accept the korban because we hope thereby to mechazak him to do tshuva. Or you just said you can't be a korban from a mumma. That was somebody who doesn't do any of the mitzvahs. Okay, you've explained that very nicely, the first step and the second step. What about the second and the third step? Except from a mumma and somebody pours yain. Hi mumma echidami. What mumma we talk about in the last step, in the third stage? If we talk about a real rasha, doesn't do anything. You already told me in the beginning that he's not allowed to be a korban. If he only does one avera, kasha b'tziasa, it's a kasha in the second stage, which you said that you can bring a korban. That somebody who does avodah zarah or chilul Shabbos, him not. So going now back to the price is like this. Everybody's allowed to be a korban. All Eden. Mikem, not everybody. Exception is a mumma. Which mumma are we talking about? The first step keeps nothing. A rasha l'cholat kulei keeps absolutely nothing. And then we say from a rasha you're allowed to bring a korban into a chazakim for one thing. That's somebody who does only one avei. Always eats treif. Oh, it says chutz min mumma, but not from a mumma. What do we mean? Then we mean except for somebody who's mechal Shabbos does avodah zarah. Somebody who's mechal Shabbos does avodah zarah. It's as if he's done all the averos together. Okay. Says the Mishnah. Anshe Chotzer. Now, actually, after we're learning so much about Bittul, we're going to actually see it in the Mishnah. Till now, it was always in the Gemara, it was never in the Mishnah. This is the first Mishnah which actually talks about Bittul inside. Anshe Chotzer, Sheshochach Echad Mehem V'lo Erev, Beisoy. Sorry, V'lo Erev. A person forgot and didn't do an Erev. And the Rishonim all say it doesn't have to mean he forgot. It can be amazing as well. Just normally a person would join the Erev, we'll talk about it. But it doesn't have to be forgetful. He can do it on purpose. And what happened was, Rashi adds, obviously, that he did bittul, because otherwise there's no, otherwise what's the Mishnah talking about? If he didn't do it, we're talking about he forgot, or on purpose, and then he went to do bittul. The Mishnah doesn't misses out that point, but it's obvious he did bittul. Then, let's get this clear. Everybody in this room lives around the compound. I forgot or did not want to join the Eiruvin. I didn't want to give a slice of it. Didn't fancy joining I like my brother, I don't give it out. Come to Shabbos morning and do a bittul of my house to all of you. So what's the Mishnah say? Nobody, that's neither you, all of you, or me, are allowed to carry from my house into the Chotzer. But all of us, that's including me, are allowed to carry from all your houses into the Chotzer. The logic, the Gemara does discuss every piece of the Mishnah and the logic, but it should be quite clear, the logic. Why?
It's not you.
Because, more than that, I relinquish my chotzer, not the house, so it's better. Yeah. I relinquish everybody, if we all live together in one compound, the chotzer belongs to everybody. It's a joint ownership. Now that I've relinquished my ownership, what's the halacha? So the chotzer doesn't belong to me. So when you carry from your house into the chotzer, it's fine. It's your houses to your chotzer. My house, the chotzer is no good, because my house belongs to me, not. Why am I allowed to carry from your house to the chotzer? What's the halacha? What would you say the svara is?
You rely on that. Other people do.
What? I am not part of the Eruv.
Once you're in my house, you live in my house.
Oh, you don't need to say as far as that. I'm a guest. I'm like a guest. Like, for example, if you have a guest, he's entitled. So regarding your houses, I'm like a guest. Okay. And what happens if, for whatever reason, all of you will mevatel your reshus to me? It's all of you together mevatel reshus to me. Then who mutter? I'm allowed to carry from my house, but none of you will be able to carry from your house into the house. If there's two of us, let's say two of us decided not to join the Eruv. Both of us are now opposite to each other, and bittul reshus here won't work. One person can give reshus, that means do bittul reshus of his property, but noitel reshus, what's noitel reshus mean? Get reshus. That's everybody can mevatel to him. But two people, noitel reshus, and noitel reshus. That's very, very clear. If there's two people that didn't join the Eruv, then they can do bittul, but they can't get bittul. Anybody wants to think of a swag? It's quite complicated, so maybe you guess it. So let's say me and Ben decide not to join the Eruv. So we can be mevatel the reshus to everybody, and then all of you will be able to carry. But let's say, for example, we need to carry. So I say to you, do us a favor, be mevatel. All of you be mevatel to me and Ben. It will not work. It won't work. It doesn't work.
Perhaps I don't want.
What?
You might ask everyone else to do it,
Right.
but maybe I don't.
Let's say the two of us ask together.
Yeah.
We ask you all together, do us a favor. We know we didn't join your Eruv. We want you to cancel to us. That doesn't work. To an individual, don't get one person can do bittul reshus to everybody, and everybody can do bittul reshus to one person. Two people can do bittul reshus to everybody, but they cannot do bittul reshus to two people. They will all discuss why. When can do reshus? Only from Friday. Even once it's Shabbos, and we pass like this, as we said dozens of times, you can do bittul reshus on Shabbos. We've had this Mishnah many times, and if it's quite complicated, the more actually in two different places gave two different explanations onto the last part of this Mishnah. I'll say it briefly. One explanation of the Mishnah is like this: that according to Rameh, everybody agrees that when you take out b'mezid, what are you doing? You're showing. Let's say I'm mevatel my reshus, and then I carry b'mezid my cup outside. I'm showing everybody that what am I doing? That I'm being mevatel my bittul. I'm undoing my bittul. So therefore, it's no good. That's b'mezid. Everybody agrees that you've lost it. So let's, for example, I'm mevatel my reshus 10 o'clock, and at 5 past 10 you see me coming outside with my gemara. None of you are allowed to carry. If you know I'm doing it by Mason. What about b'shoigig? It's machlokes Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, look, I did it by mistake. Since I did it by mistake, who cares? Therefore, I didn't mean anything. But Meir says, we're scared that if you do it b'shoigig, you might come to b'mezid, therefore we don't allow b'shoigig as well. That's one mahalech the Gemara had earlier. Another mahalech the Gemara had different, was a completely different mahalech, is that the machlokes is mubatim v'chos mubatim. Can you do it back and forth a few times in a day? I give the mashal by a Gemara. If you lend the Gemara back and forth, I give you the Gemara, you give it back to me, so I've got the Gemara now, you got the Gemara, etc., etc. So if you say back to Chizm back, then the Meir holds that even when you do it b'shoigeg, in the end of the day, now you're showing that I'm back in the Rishus. So therefore you've lost. It's not because of Exer Shogeg or Tumezid. It is simply that now that I've come back in, so now I'm 5 minutes later, I'll give it back to you. But while I'm carrying into the Chotzer, it's as if I'm back in. Okay. But everybody agrees that b'mezid, it is awesome. Says the Gemara like this. Basically, let's go back to the very first case of the Mishnah. I'm about to Rishus to everybody. Nobody's allowed to carry from my house into the Chotzer. Basically, you're allowed to carry in the Chotzer. Either bottle basically, if the bottle, if the bit of basically my also. Either the bottle Chatzir my Shari. If I was about to, why can't I carry from my house? If I didn't do bit of, why allowed to carry in the Chotzer? As more of my skin going to bit of Rishus Chatzir, will a bit of Rishus basically. I've relinquished my possession of the Chotzer. That's right. I've relinquished the right to the Chotzer, but not the right to my house. Because some of you are born on what which is chatzir, which is basically the daim should be biased for the chotzer. We had this once before. A blessed argues on this. That the chachamim hold that it is common for a person to say, "I don't want to be part of the chotzer, but I do want to be part of the house. The house is mine." So therefore, that's just the chotzer. And therefore, right, since that's just the chotzer, so everybody's allowed to carry in my chotzer, but not in my house. For them, he's even allowed to. I'm allowed to carry. If I'm about to marry just to all of you, I'm allowed to carry from your house. Then I'm only a guest. So if I'm a guest, and since I'm a guest, therefore I can. If that means let's say you all mavater the shus to me. So then what happens is I'm allowed to carry from my house into the chotzer. Why? Because you've all relinquished your rishus of the chotzer to me, since as if the chotzer is my private back garden, so I'm allowed to carry from my house into the garden. Are you allowed to carry from my house into the garden? What would you say, Mitzvah? So what would you say, Mitzvah? It's fine. And what's the Mishnah? The Mishnah says it's still good. What's pshat? Why can't they all be guests? Like Yehuda says, let them all be guests, and if they're all guests, then they all carry. And some more. 1 to 5 is a guest. 5 to 1 is not a guest. Meaning, we don't see it as a guest. When I'm about to marry shul, so it makes sense. You've all got your house. I'm like a guest by all of you. But here to say that you're all a guest by me, that doesn't make sense.
It would mean there's no need for all this. If we just say we're guests of each other the whole time.
No.
If the whole group of me,
Yes.
if we say we're the whole group of you,
Yes.
then there's no need for all of this.
No, there would still be a problem. Even if you would be guests, you'd only be allowed to carry from my house into the chotzer. But none of you is allowed to carry from their own house into the chotzer. That's the problem. Bit of the shus. Bit of the shus is very complicated. Because bit of the shus, even if you do bit of the shus to me, you then be, if you were my guest, you'd be allowed to carry from my house to the chotzer, but not from your own house. The chiddush is that you're not allowed. The only person who'd be allowed to carry is me, and only from my house, and I cannot carry from your houses into the chotzer. So it would only be, for example, where we have a case like where a child needs to do bris milah, but for example, I'm desperate, so therefore you do bit of shus to me. Now, the Mishnah did not start every time as saying a new story. It's the flow of the Mishnah's mashma that we're talking about one Shabbos, and in the beginning of Shabbos I did bittul to you, and then later you did bittul to me, and then later there were 2 of us and you did bittul to 2, and bittul says, well, shma mino, it's a right that you can do bittul and then another bittul, because you started off, I do bittul to you. It says, well, no, you misunderstood the Mishnah. The Mishnah means a different thing. If a new story happened on a different Shabbos, then from the beginning of the Shabbos they did bittul rishus. We're talking about a different story where the beginning of Shabbos it started differently. So we've got one story in the middle of Shabbos this, and one a different Shabbos. We're not talking about one Shabbos. The Ma'aseh we pass in the back in the Chosem Avakli. But from this Mishnah you've got no raya because the Mishnah could be talking about a different Shabbos. This is slightly more complicated. Again, there were 2 of us. Me and Ben decided not to join in Eiruvin. And what happened was because of that, we could, if we wanted to, be mevatel the shus to all of you. And then what would happen? you can carry from your houses into the chutzah. We can't. But we can't. But what happened was we want to be able to carry. So we're asking all of you, would you agree to mevatel your shus to us? Now, that is obvious. What I was going to say, it's obvious. If you mevatel shus to both of us, would any of us be able to carry? No. The reason being, because if there's only two of us living in the chutzah, you're still not allowed to carry. Why not allowed to carry? My house is my private domain. The chutzah belongs now, after you all have been mevatel shus to me and Ben, belongs to me and Ben. So therefore, what happens is, I anyway can't carry from my house to the chutzah. Because if all of you mevatel shus to me and Ben, what happens is, now of course I can't carry, because the house belongs only to me, and the chutzah belongs to two people. So what's the chiddush of our Mishnah? So again, let's go inside. Of course you ask on each other. Because let's say you all did bitul shus to the two of us. What's it going to help? I still can't carry, because carrying from my house to the chutzah is carrying from a single possession to a double possession, which is awesome. And that's a very big chiddush. What happened was like this. Shabbos morning we say, the two of us didn't join in your Eiruvin. You know what? Do us a favor. Be mevatel to us. And all of you are very kind and generous. We relinquish our possession of the chutzah to you two. And then I say to them, do me a favor. You mevatel your shus to me. Now, how many people own the chutzah? Only me. So I should be able to carry. So nice. Why not? The chiddush is no, you can't. Ma'al table is story. You might thought to mutter. So that means why not? Kamash me not. The kibbutz with the bottle. The reason is like this. It's a svara as follows. When all of you cancelled relinquished your possession of the chutzah to the two of us, was Ben allowed to carry? No, he wasn't allowed to carry. Why not? It belongs to the two of us. Now he's going to give it over to me. But he's giving over to me a possession, a heta, which he never really had. So therefore he can't do it. If you all do it, so then that to one person, that's okay. Because you're only giving over your possession. But we're here to do it to two stages. You all do it to one of us. And then one of us does it to the other, that doesn't work. And that's how we pass this very important halacha. You can't do bittul to a group, and then the group should do a bittul to each other. We'll see this again later. You can't do that. You can only do a bittul to one person. If there's two of us, that's it. It doesn't work. So if there's two of us, in fact, you can't do bittul to the two of us either, because you can't do bittul to two because neither of us will be able to carry. You can't do bittul to two and say one should do bittul to the other. That also doesn't work. Okay. The more bothered that the Mishnah seems to repeat itself. I mean, it's really the way I understood the Mishnah before to go is the Mishnah summarizing the halachas. The more understands of it is a bit of repetition. Sulamani. So God says, if you tell me the halachas that one person can give rishus, that's do bitter rishus tanina. If you tell me the halachas everybody can battle rishus to one person tanina. And so sefer tzichalei. The chiddush is the ikar of the sefer. Shnaim noisen rishus. That two people can battle rishus. Bring on nami pshita. That the two people can be mevatel shus. Why in the world should not be? Why can't two people be mevatel shus? Why not? It says more about the tema. It says more ein on the top of the page. That means the halacha would be, you might have thought that two people can't be mevatel shus. Why would you think two people can't be mevatel shus? The reason why not. Let's say the two of us forgot. Let's be mevatel shus. The answer is, if we see two people be mevatel shus, people will say, two people is like one. And just like by one person, you can be mevatel rishus and get rishus, so people can mevatel rishus and get rishus. You might have thought that two people should not be allowed to mevatel rishus. Just do one more line, because after that it's a whole new thing. Why does Mishnah need to say that two people can't get rishus? Already told us that. Can you imagine such a thing? Let's say all of you go together. Me and Ben forgot to do a bit of rishus. We forgot to do an eiruvin. So now I want to be able to carry. So I say, all of you do bittul to Ben and say to him on condition that he gives it to Yehuda. Even that doesn't work. Even if they said, it doesn't work. Why not? Because it doesn't work. Because you can't give it to him. You're never getting it. Because you can never carry it, because there's two of us. So therefore, that doesn't work. So that's the end of all the chidushim of our Mishnah. And now the world continues to discuss these halachas. You have to think about how to have to find the times, Tuesday, maybe to record it on Wednesday morning. And then afterwards, I'm going on Tuesday already, Tuesday afternoon. I'm going Tuesday afternoon. So if I take the laptop with me on Tuesday, that's I need to find out if the way I'm staying has internet. It doesn't have internet. You have the dongle, I don't have it.
Wow.
I just say a very, very sweet word. Somebody told me it's a beautiful word. I'm not sure there's anything small. Knieski said the Kuna came from Lashon Hara. And the Mamish, when I see people walking around with masks and they can't talk properly, you really see it. He said right at the beginning, and quarantine, but the Yeshiv, the Nachash, Rashi said, what was the idea of the Nachash, the snake? Spoke Lashon Hara. What was his punishment? Offer Teicha. Says Chazal, the snake, whatever eats, tastes like dust. I've never been a snake, I don't know. But if a snake, everything a snake tastes is like dust, tastes like dust. What's the main symptom? Losing the sense of taste.
Oh, wow.
Everything tastes bland. Shua Cohen told it to me. The son of Eli, no, the son of the Menalowitz, the ex-Menalowitz. Beautiful word, isn't it? I told him this word about the mask. That's Islamic thing. It's a very nice word, it's beautiful word. So somebody said to me that he got Kohen and didn't lose the sense. I said it over. We don't know. We don't know Cheshbon Shemaim. We're just saying, generally speaking. Yeah, sorry, I should end it. Good Vach, David. Good Vach, Yehuda. That's all with everything.
Vach.